Hey YouTube, this is Edward Underhill here with my top 5 favorite Wrestlemanias in my collection. I don't have Wrestlemanias 1 through 14 yet. I'm probably going to get the anthology set sometime later this year. Once I've watched those, I'll probably do an updated video to this before WrestleMania 33. We'll see what happens, but for now, I have 15 through 31 on home video, and this is going to be my top 5 favorites in my collection. Now, I don't consider these aren't WrestleManias I think are the greatest of all time. These are just my favorites. I'm going to have 4 honorable mentions as well, which I will talk about. I'll just go over the matches, give my thoughts on the show, and then give a rating out of 10 to close it out. So we're going to start off with number 5. At number 5, we have WrestleMania 18 from March 2002. This is the Koch release edition. It's not the rare one that goes for a lot of money, but it's still the original release. This was a very good WrestleMania. It's got a really good, solid card on it. You got the Intercontinental Championship match between William Regal and Rob Van Dam, which was pretty good. Very contrasting styles between these two guys. You had the European Championship match between Diamond Dallas Page and Christian, which was a decent match. You had the Hardcore Championship match between Goldust and Maven, which was not great, but entertaining for what it was. Plus, you had the whole runner throughout the whole show of the Hardcore Championship, changing hands in pretty crazy ways with a bunch of different people. You had the Kane versus Kurt Angle, which was a solid match. You had the no disqualification match between Undertaker and Ric Flair, which is one of my favorite streak matches of all time. Edge versus Booker T, which was a solid match. Short, though. And then, of course, you also had Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Scott Hall, which was a okay match. Austin did the best he could. Scott Hall wasn't in the greatest shape, as most people probably know by this point. The 4-corner elimination tag match for the belts was good, between Billy and Chuck, the Hardys, the AP, and the Dudleys. You had the Icon versus Icon match between Hulk Hogan and The Rock, which of course the crowd just was electric during that match. You had the triple threat match for the Women's Championship between Jazz, Lita, and Victoria, or Trish Stratus, which was a good match as well. And then, of course, you had the Undisputed Championship match between Chris Jericho and Triple H, who won the 2002 Royal Rumble that year. Solid match, not great. I do think they should have gone on before Rock and Hogan should have gone on last, but keeping with that tradition, the championship match is going to go on last, so what can you do? But yeah, that's WrestleMania 18 at number 5. This is also one of the first WWF DVDs I purchased as well, along with SummerSlam 2000. Number 4 is last year's WrestleMania, which is WrestleMania 31. Very infamous for having a mixed build-up, but it delivered. I would give WrestleMania 18 probably an 8 out of 10 as well on a rating scale. This was a very good show as well. This was actually better than I thought it was going to be. I went into it thinking it was going to be like a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10 show. I would give this probably a 9 out of 10 after watching it. Yeah, I mean, you had the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship, which was a great match. Of course, won by Daniel Bryan, even though he had to drop the belt later because of injuries. You had Randy Orton versus Seth Rollins with the infamous curb stomp RKO spot, which I'm still amazed they were able to pull off as great as they did, because that could have been botched so badly, but that shows you how good of a performer Seth Rollins is, and so is Randy Orton as well. You had Triple H versus Sting, which I do think that Sting should have won. I know what they were trying to do, but he still should have won. It was his debut match, but That's Vince McMahon's decision, and we have to live with that. He had AJ and Paige versus the Bellas, which was a good Divas match. You had John Cena versus Rusev for the United States Championship, which was a good match. You had Undertaker returning as after his loss at WrestleMania 30 against Bray Wyatt, which was a okay match. Bray Wyatt, of course, had an ankle injury before the show, so he did the best he could. And then, of course, you had the match with Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for the World Championship, which was a very physical match, which had the infamous moment of Seth cashing in and winning the belt, which, by the way, I am going to do a collection video on my figures as well in a couple of months, but I want to show this off. And that's the Seth Cashes In figure. I picked this up back in January. I just want to show this off. I didn't pick it up recently. It's a little different from the one that's released over in the States. It doesn't say Seth Cashes In at the top. It just says Money in the Bank, but this is an official figure. It's not a bootleg or a knockoff. It's legit. It's got the copyrights on the bottom. Just a little different on the box, guys. But really nice figure. Great in any collection, especially if you're a fan of Seth Rollins, which I am. Wasn't a huge fan of his at first, but he's growing on me, and I cannot wait until he gets back. But yeah, wanted to show this off just because it's a great figure. But yeah, WrestleMania 31. I would give this a 9 out of 10. But yeah. So that's number 4. Number 3, sorry. WrestleMania 20, where it all begins again. Madison Square Garden, March 14th, 2004. One of the most loaded cards WWE's done for WrestleMania since the 80s. And those cards were loaded, from what I've heard. This was a very good show. Insert follow-up, I'm sorry. Again, sorry. Much like WrestleMania 18, this is the Koch release edition, so it's not the regular one that most people got in the States. Got this for $10 at Value Village used. Pretty good shape. But yeah, just the card was really loaded for this show. It was almost 5 hours long, which is pretty long for WrestleMania. But you had John Cena versus The Big Show for the United States Championship in John's WrestleMania debut. You had the 2 fatal 4-way matches for the tag belts, the World Tag Belts for Raw, and the regular and the WWE Tag Belts for SmackDown. You had Chris Jericho versus Christian, which was a good match. You had a 2-on-3 handicap match between The Rock and Sock Connection versus Evolution, which was a solid match, not great, but still a solid match. You had the Playboy evening gown match, which was... What can you do? It's women in undergarments. You're not going to get a great match out of that, but these women did the best they could. You had the Cruiserweight Championship Open, which was pretty decent. It was a pretty long match from memory. I haven't watched this show for a while, but I might watch this weekend, actually. But you had Chavo Guerrero versus Jamie Noble versus Funaki versus Ultimo Dragon versus Rey Mysterio versus Nunzio versus Tajiri versus Shannon Moore versus Billy Kidman. All of whom were really talented cruiserweights at the time. Chavo Guerrero was the champion going into the match, by the way. You had the infamous interpromotional match between Goldberg and Brock Lesnar with Stone Cold Steve Austin as the guest referee, where the crowd showered Lesnar with "You Sold Out" chants, and he, of course, did the infamous "fuck you" spot to the crowd, and then had the balls to flip off Austin, and then got a stunner for his trouble. So did Goldberg, but both guys were leaving, so you knew it wasn't going to be that good of a match anyway. But you had the women's championship between Molly Holly and Victoria, where if Molly lost, she was going to get her head shaved, which she did. Spoilers. You had a great match between Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship. Rest in peace, Eddie Guerrero. We still miss you, dude. You had Undertaker coming back as the original Dead Man against Kane. And then you had an amazing, and I mean amazing, triple threat match between Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and the Crippler, Chris Benoit. Almost 10 years since that whole incident, and people are still talking about it to this day. I don't think we're ever going to go over that. Really cool extras as well. You had the behind the scenes of WrestleMania 19 and the WrestleMania's 10 greatest matches ever hosted by Ric Flair. Very cool list. The Mania of Mania is what you got to get the WrestleMania 20 DVD for, by the way. That alone is worth getting this for, but yeah. WrestleMania 20, I would give this probably an a 9.5 out of 10. Really good card. Not the highest match quality, but still. Just for the triple threat match alone, this show is really good. Plus also the match between Eddie and Angle as well was really good. Number 2, you guys have seen my video review of this already on my channel. I did this for my 1-year anniversary special. WrestleMania 19, which took place in Seattle, Washington at Safeco Field in front of 54,097 fans. The first WWE produced WrestleMania. WrestleMania 18 was the last WWF produced WrestleMania, as most people probably know by now. And I gotta say, this show, it delivered. One of my personal favorite WrestleManias of all time. Favorite of many. Of course, you had the WWE Championship match between Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle, where Lesnar did the infamous shooting star press spot where he nearly broke his neck. Still cannot believe he survived that. You had Stone Cold's last match versus The Rock, which I'd say is the third best match in there. Of the 3 that they had, this is the second best. You guys probably know what their best one is, and then 15 was their third best match of the 3. You had the street fight between Hogan and Vince McMahon with the infamous shot of Vince peering over the apron with the blood pouring down his face looking like Satan. You had a great match between Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. You had the world title match between Booker T and Triple H. You had the triple threat women's championship match between Victoria, Trish Stratus, and Jazz, which was very good. You had Undertaker versus Big Show entering the handicap match. You had the triple threat tag match for the tag belts between Team Angle, Los Guerreros, Chris Benoit, and Rhino. Of course, the air with that great spot where Benoit throws Eddie up in the air and then pulls him down, puts him in the crossface. One of the craziest things on this whole show, I gotta say, the air that Benoit gets on Eddie is insane. If you don't believe me, watch this match on the network. It was crazy. And of course, you had Matt Hardy versus Rey Mysterio in the Cruiserweight Championship match. Decent opener for this show, but yeah. Second favorite WrestleMania, 9.5 out of 10. Great show from start to finish. One of my favorites. So yeah. And now before we get into number 1, I'm going to show you guys the honorable mentions. I've got 4 of them. So the first honorable mention was the first WrestleMania I ever watched on pay-per-view with my dad, WrestleMania 24. This is the Blu-ray edition. I don't have the DVD. I was watching when they did the Build to 23, but I didn't watch the show. But I did watch this when the opportunity came up. It's a very good show. You had the Belfast Brawl between Finlay and JBL. You had the Money in the Bank ladder match, which was won by CM Punk, which also featured Chris Jericho, Shelton Benjamin, John Morrison, Carlito, MVP, and Mr. Kennedy. You had the Battle for Brand Supremacy, between Batista and Umaga. Rest in peace. You had the Playboy Bunny Mania Lumberjack match with Maria and Ashley versus Beth Phoenix and Melina, hosted by Snoop Dogg. You had the triple threat match for the WWE Championship between Randy Orton, John Cena, and Triple H, which was pretty good. You had the biggest versus the best between Big Show and Floyd Mayweather, which was pretty much just Big Show versus Floyd's entourage, and then of course Floyd got his cheap shots in where he could. Won by knockout, of course, as most people probably know by now. You had the World Heavyweight Championship match between Edge versus Undertaker, which was really good. And then, of course, you had the infamous final match of the Nature Boy Ric Flair versus Shawn Michaels. Yeah. So, yeah, I would give this probably an 8.5 out of 10 on a rating scale. And this was also the first WWE Blu-ray ever released as well, by the way. Number 2 honorable mention was my third WrestleMania that I watched, WrestleMania 26. This is the 3-disc collector's set. Really solid undercard for this show as well. You had 3 outstanding matches. You had the 2 World Championship matches between John Cena and Batista, and then Jericho versus Edge. You had that outstanding match between Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, which was, of course, Shawn Michaels' last match. You had Vince McMahon versus Bret Hart, where Bret finally got revenge for the screw job. You had Triple H versus Sheamus. You had the triple threat match between Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, and Ted DiBiase, which was run by Randy Orton. CM Punk versus Rey Mysterio. The unified tag team title match between The Miz and The Big Show versus John Morrison and R-Truth. You had that 10-man Money in the Bank ladder match, and you had the 10 Diva tag match as well, which was an okay match. I would give this probably a 9 out of 10 actually, just for the 3 really good matches alone. Number 3 honorable mention is WrestleMania 28. This was a pretty good WrestleMania. The once-in-a-lifetime tagline's BS, though, because we all know they did John Cena versus The Rock at WrestleMania 29 as well. But you had the end of an era Hell in a Cell match between The Undertaker and Triple H. Personally, for me, it's my second favorite Hell in a Cell match. The original is my all-time favorite. Still to this day. You had CM Punk versus Jericho for the WWE Championship. You had Team Teddy versus Team Johnny, which was an okay match. You had the Intercontinental Championship match between Cody Rhodes versus Big Show, where Big Show finally got his WrestleMania moment. You had Randy Orton versus Kane in a good match. You had Kelly and Maria Menounos versus Beth Phoenix and Eve, who I wish were still with the company. But it was an okay match. And then, of course, you had the infamous 18-second squash match between Daniel Bryan and Sheamus. What the fuck was the idea behind that piece of business? Didn't get Sheamus over, and it also led to the rise of Daniel Bryan after he lost the world title, which leads to my last honorable mention, my second favorite WrestleManias of the 8 that I've watched, WrestleMania 30. This is my second favorite WrestleMania of the 8 that I've watched so far. Of course, 31 is my favorite. This is the second favorite. Of course, you had the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, which was won by Cesaro. You had John Cena versus Bray Wyatt in a good match. You had the Divas Championship Invitational, which was okay. It wasn't great. Which was won by AJ Lee. You had, of course, the infamous match between Brock Lesnar and The Undertaker, where Lesnar broke the streak. That's something that's going to haunt me till the day that I die, because I did not think it was going to happen, but it did. And then, of course, you had the 2 matches, which are what everyone knew was going to be the big thing going into the show, aside from Lesnar versus Taker. You had Daniel Bryan versus Triple H in a great match to open up the show. And then you had the main event, which was the triple threat match between Daniel Bryan, Batista, and Daniel Bryan, where Daniel Bryan won the World Heavyweight Championship in the main event of WrestleMania 30. One of the greatest WrestleMania moments of all time. Sucks that Daniel Bryan is gone, but no one else can say that they main evented WrestleMania 30 except for him, and won. So yeah, those are my honorable mentions. And now, for the #1 pick in my collection. You've probably all seen the video for this. It was the very first thing I ever uploaded. Of course, I knew I was going to get a lot of crap if I didn't put this in the list. WrestleMania 17. The greatest WrestleMania of all time for many. Of course, this is the... If you guys haven't seen the video yet, this is the Koch release. It's not the rare version that goes for like a lot of money on Amazon and eBay, but this is the original unedited WWF version of the show with the Limp Bizkit music and the WWF logo shown in its full glory. This is it's the greatest WrestleMania of all time. 10 out of 10. All across the board. Great undercard. You had stuff like Shane versus Vince McMahon in a street fight. You had a great match between Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. You had the TLC 2 match between the Dudleys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys, with the infamous spot of Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the ladder. You had Jericho versus William Regal for the Intercontinental Championship. You had the triple threat match for the Hardcore Championship between Kane, Raven, and Big Show. You had Test versus Eddie Guerrero. You had the Gimmick Battle Royal. You had the Women's Championship match between Chyna versus Ivory. You had a great match between Undertaker and Triple H in a 20-minute brawl. And then to close out the show, you had a damn good, and I mean a damn good, no disqualification match for the WWF Championship between these two gentlemen right here, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Fantastic show. Definitely, if you can find this at your local used DVD store or on eBay or Amazon for a good price and in great shape like I did, definitely get it. It's worth it. From what I've heard, the version that's on the anthology set is just trash. I'm so happy that I have this in my collection. But yeah, so those are my top 5 favorite WrestleManias in my collection, plus honorable mentions. Let me know in the comments what your guys' favorite WrestleManias are. And, so yeah. There you go. Get a nice group shot there. But yeah. So thank you guys for watching the video. Be sure to like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Leave your comments. And I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, peace out.